Is All of Me the greatest song you've ever written? I don't know. I think, many people say All of Me. Some people say Ordinary People.
I actually like Ordinary People a little bit more as a song personally, but part of it's just sentimental because it was so early in my career and it meant so much to me even being where I am now that it's hard for me to imagine my career without it. And it laid the foundation for All of Me to work, because once people understood that, man, John Legend, he gonna sit down at the piano.
Ordinary People created John Legend.
Yeah, exactly. It really it set the table for everything else to happen after that. But All of Me by far is the biggest song of my career.
Yes.
It's one of the most popular songs of all, literally of all time. Like when it comes to streaming, when it comes to all the
sold
the
over
numbers.
40 million records worldwide. It's diamond, 14 times platinum.
Yeah.
All of Me dethroned Pharrell Williams' Happy on the Billboard Hot 100.
It's my only number one on the Hot 100. And it's truly still the number one song. If you go to my, any of the streaming platforms, it's the number one song that's played because it still means a lot to people. And they still play it at their weddings and their anniversaries. And whenever they want to dedicate something to somebody they love, All of Me, their go-to.
Because you told a story that you wrote that song for Chrissy.
Yeah.
Forgive me, but I was hoping, I was like, man, if I ever... Hopefully I can recall all the stories that he's telling, because they're so good. And like I'm saying, I'm not so sure that people will know this if they haven't gone to a show. Yeah. And I know they're not going to have the recall that I'm able to recall. Yeah. But you wrote this story, All of Me, for Chrissy.
Yeah.
Tell me what the thought process was. What was going through your mind when you're like, I want to write a song for my wife?
Well, I was writing for my fiance at the time, and honestly, during that time, I'm like thinking about the fact that we're going to get married, and I wanted to write a song dedicated to her. Mm-hmm. And one day my manager sent me this Billy Joel song called She's Always a Woman. And she was like, you should write a song like that for Chrissy. And I was like, you're right. And I just started really just thinking about our relationship and what she means to me, and what makes our relationship special. And like I told you before, like some part of what makes our relationship special is that we're not exactly alike.
Yes.
And there's like a push and pull and a yin and yang situation. And the fact that we complement each other really well. And really All of Me was born out of that idea that it's like, you're my end and my beginning. Even when I lose, I'm winning. It's like a lot of push and pull in the lyric. And
those perfect imperfections.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it's like about things that are kind of opposites coming together. And I think that's what makes it work, is people see their own relationship in the song, and it came from a really honest place about my own. And I always tell songwriters, part of what you have to do is be very personal, but also be very universal at the same time. And so like the songs that really land are the ones that come from such a real honest place.
Yes.
Very specific.
Yes.
But also have this universal appeal and applicability to everybody else's life. And so that's my best songs are the ones that have that personal side, specific side, but also are universal.
Right. Love your curves and all your edges, all your perfect imperfections.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think anytime you're with somebody for a long time, you see everything.
Yes.
And that's the whole idea of the song, is like, you see everything, and nobody's perfect all the time. Everybody's got moments when they're not at their best. And when you are able to see that and still love that person, that's when you know you're in the right place. Yeah.
Yes. When it's kind of like I've asked artists before, like, give me your favorite songs. And they say, well, it's kind of like kids. I don't have a favorite.
Yeah.
But you do. You do. You do. You absolutely do.
I think a lot of times for artists, a lot of it is about the place you were in your life.
Okay.
During that time. So that one's always going to be special because it was right before we got married.
Right.
And the first time I sang it in front of an audience was at our wedding.
Yes.
And so it's always going to mean that to me. We filmed the video at the place where we got married the week of the wedding. The same guy who introduced us filmed the video. He's the same director that made that very first video, Nabil Elderkin. He directed the All of Me video too, and we did it in the place where we fell in love. So it's always going to be super meaningful to me because of that.
Prior to you singing the song, has she ever heard it?
She heard it the first time at home. I was like really proud of it. And I've never done this before, and I've never done it since. I came home and sang it to her in her ear. Like literally, like as we were about to go to bed, I sang her this song. I was like, I love this song. I wrote this for you. And she started crying.
I was about that. She had to. She had to.
And I've never done that since or before. So I knew something was special about it. And one of the things about writing a hit song, like the problem is, as a songwriter, you're excited whenever you finish the song, even if it don't even end up making the album. So sometimes it's hard for me to distinguish between me being excited that I finished it and it actually being one of my greater songs. And so sometimes you need a little time, you need to play it for other people before you actually know, oh, this is the one. But I loved it and I felt like it was special that day. But like I said, I fall in love with all my songs when I first write them. So the more I would play it for other people, I'm like, played it for Frank Ocean. He's like, oh my God, this one, special. Played it for Kanye. He's like, oh my God, that one, special. And like, I played it for all these different people in my life, people with different tastes, different ears. And all of them kept coming back to that one. I was like, oh, we got one. And it's crazy because it wasn't the first single again, just like Ordinary People wasn't the first single. It wasn't the first single for that album. But I told my label, I was like, this could be my biggest song ever. Please don't f this up. Please don't f it up. Like you have to invest in it. You have to put time in it. And the way it works with R&B artists is that we usually get promoted at Urban AC, which is a station. Urban AC stands for Urban Adult Contemporary, which is basically short for Black adults. So it's like black, it's R&B, but not rap, basically. But that's a relatively small portion of the country. So if you're only being played on Urban AC, it's not going to be a huge hit song. And what I was telling them, and we were doing well with All of Me at Urban AC. That's my home format. That's where most of my records are played. And that's fine. But I was like, yo, this song is not just an R&B record. It could be everywhere.
It's got to be multicultural.
Yeah. And so I was like, don't f it up. Like, this could be my biggest song ever. And finally, they started trying to cross it over to pop. And this was months after it came out. It had already been #1 on Urban AC for a while. And what happened was, so it came out in like the fall or maybe late summer of 2013. It didn't become a smash until spring 2014. And what happened was, one, they finally started trying to cross it over to pop radio in early 2014. And then I sang it at the Grammys, and they had like this spotlight on me, but also on Chrissy at the same time. And it was like a moment. And soon as I sang it at the Grammys, it shot up the iTunes charts, which was a thing at the time. We don't even care about the iTunes charts anymore. But iTunes isn't even a thing anymore. But it shot up the iTunes charts after that performance. And then eventually it shot up the overall charts and became a #1 song for weeks at a time. But it was months, many months after it came out. And it took a long time working at one format, and then finally crossing it over. The Grammys, all that together made it the hit that it was.
When you sang it at the event, did you get a standing ovation?
Oh yeah, everybody loved it, and it was a moment. Like social media was around then, like Twitter and everything, and everybody was talking about it, and you saw it immediately. You could see with iTunes charts, like it was instant feedback. And it was happening immediately, and I'm getting emails, texts from my team, like, yo, John, like, your numbers are going crazy everywhere. And it changed my life. That moment shot it up every chart, and it became the, global smash that it was because of it.
Give me your top 5 songs that you think you've written.
So, All of Me and Ordinary People, we'll get 2 out of 5. I'm going to say Again is one of my favorite songs I've written. It's on my second album. Once again, it's not a hit song. It wasn't even a single, but I just love it. If you ever watched Def Poetry Jam back in the day, I sang it on Def Poetry Jam, which is kind of blasphemous. You're supposed to be a poet on Def Poetry Jam, but that was my version of poetry. So that's 3 out of 5. I'm going to say Glory.
Man, if you didn't say Glory, man, I get every time, John, every time I hear that song, I get emotional.
Yeah.
It is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is almost like 500 years of our ancestors are calling out.
Yeah. And you know, I grew up studying the civil rights movement. That was inspiring to me. You know, I'm this nerdy kid and homeschooled, and one of the things that inspired me was going to the library and reading about all these folks that fought for us to have the life that we have now. And I was always influenced by them. And people always ask me, why you speak out about politics and stuff all the time? And so much of it is rooted in understanding what my ancestors did to fight for me to have the freedoms that I have. And I don't want to take that for granted. And I look at them as an example of what it means to live a meaningful life. And I always knew that I wanted to be a musician, but also that I was going to use this platform that this life has given me to do something else bigger than just my own personal career. It's actually make a difference in the world and use a platform that I have to make a difference. And all of my favorite artists did it, like Stevie, Marvin, Aretha, Nina Simone. Like all these artists knew that it was a special thing for them to have the platform that they had.
Right.
So not only did they use their platform, they used their money. They funded the civil rights movement.
Yes.
Like Harry Belafonte and Aretha, they were sending money to Dr. King. They were bailing him out of jail. They were paying for rallies, paying to get folks out of jail. And then their songs were being used as the fuel and the inspiration for these marches that folks were on. So I always looked at that as like, oh, that's what an artist is supposed to do.
Right.
And so when I wrote Glory for Selma, it was like partly just fulfilling the role that I always thought artists were supposed to play. And if you remember at this time, we're partly responding to the film, but we're also responding to Ferguson and the shooting of Michael Brown and the protests that were happening in the streets of Ferguson, but also all around the country. And Common, when he wrote his lyrics for the verses, he was directly referencing, we're walking through Ferguson with our hands up. And so we were always writing for 1965 and for 2014 at the same time. And that's why that song's always going to be special, because it was so inspired by the moment, so inspired by our ancestors, and then it turned around and inspired more people to march.
Right.
So those same people that were marching in Ferguson that inspired us to write the song, they were marching a few years later with our song.
Right. When I think about it and hear you say that, I hear when Marvin Gaye wrote for Vietnam, there's far too many of us dying.
Yeah.
You hear Neil Simone singing A Strange Fruit.
And Mississippi Goddamn.
And the most famous one is Sam Cooke, A Change Is Gonna Come.
Yeah.
I think when I hear Glory and I hear A Change Is Gonna Come, I get the same emotion. I mean, I'm starting to get chills now just thinking about it, because he's saying, we're going to write, one day when you sing Glory, we're going to rise up. We're going to overcome.
Yes.
Sam is saying a change is going to come. It doesn't seem like it, but I know a change is going to come.
Yeah, and you know, when you think about the experience of Black people in America, we've had such a hard time in this country, and we're a permanent minority. We're never going to be the majority in this country.
Nope.
And so we're always going to be at a disadvantage in some way. But we've still, despite all the evidence, despite all the setbacks we've encountered, we've maintained a hope that we could help fuel the change in this country and make it better for ourselves and for our kids. And we've done the work to try to make this country live up to its ideals since day one.
Yeah. We just want you to be what you said you're going to be on that paper.
What you said you were going to be.
That's all. We don't want anything more.
You said all men were created equal.
We just want
Let's do that.
Just be what you said you were going to be on paper.
Yes.
Selling your catalog, you sold your catalog. Was that a hard decision? So basically the songs from 2000.
Hold on. I didn't give you my top 5. I gave you 4.
You gave 4. Okay.
Let me think. Number 5.
You haven't written it yet?
I don't know, man. I got some favorites. Ooh. Number 5. I'm going to say Wonder Woman from my latest album is in my top 5.
Wow.
Yeah. That one feels special. And it really, like after seeing everything that Chrissy and I have been through together. It just felt special to write that song for her. And we really wrote it thinking about mothers and motherhood and how difficult it is and how we should honor that. And that song's always going to be special to me, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Once you said Wonder Woman, I knew it was for Chrissy.
But there's also thinking about...
for women.
Yeah, and not just women, but I think motherhood, I was really inspired by seeing how much of a challenge it is to be a mother and all the things your body goes through and everything that's so difficult about it, and just honoring that.
20-year anniversary of Get Lifted.
Yeah.
That was your debut album.
Yes, sir.
How were you able to come out the gate so strong?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of things came together at once. First of all, you know, it was a great time for me and Kanye to meet. So we met in 2001. We were both unsigned at the time, but he had just started producing with Jay-Z and the folks at Rockefeller Records. And when we started working together, I just found that our chemistry, our combination of different skills and different influences, when it came together, it worked.
Yes.
And we made music that was really interesting and different and special. And then he had just come out with College Dropout in February of 2004. So being signed to his production company and then being the first artist that came out under his production company, it was a great setup. So he's already succeeding, and I got signed almost right after his debut album came out, because all labels that had turned us down before, they turned us down. And it was the same demo, but when his album came out, sold 400,000 copies the first week. Oh, it sounded a lot better.
Right.
The demo sounded a lot better. So we played the same demo for him, but all of a sudden it sounded better. And then multiple labels wanted to sign me, and all of them had turned me down before. And so...
It's going to cost you a little more now.
Yeah, it costs them a little more.
Want to join Club Shay Shay? Become an official member by hitting that subscribe button, where you never know who's going to be joining us for drinks and conversation. Don't be late to the party, because you know we like to do something before 2 something.